This is the Barry Richards Show. WBSM On Demand.
Without further ado,
WBSM presents The Barry Richards Show. Streaming live on WBSM.com and the WBSM app. Call 508-996-0500. Text us using App Chat on the WBSM app. Now, The Barry Richards Show.
oh what a night. Late December back in 63. What a very special time for me, as I remember what a night.
And welcome back to the program, hour number 2 of our program on this Tuesday afternoon, and watching the horrific videotapes over and over here of the bridge collapse in Baltimore, the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Still 6 people unaccounted for at this point. And just a couple of developments since we were together last. Biden was on television. We're going to build this bridge together. Shut up. Just send the check, Joe. We don't need you there. Biden also saying he's going to go to Baltimore just as soon as I can. Hello, dude. You've got not Air Force One, but Marine One, the helicopter, available to you 24/7. You can be up in the air in 20 minutes over that bridge. And besides, you go through Baltimore on the way to your little vacation pad in Maryland, like how many times a month? You could be there at a moment's notice. So I'll get there just as soon as I can. Pete Buttigieg, apparently done changing diapers, is at the scene from what we are hearing. And again, they're indicating here there's going to be an update from the National Transportation Safety Board at 2:30 this afternoon on what is known at this point. The governor of Maryland, Governor Wes Moore, saying this morning there is, quote, no credible indication of terrorism involved in this. Special Agent Bill Del Bagno of the FBI's Baltimore field office saying, I want to be clear, there is no specific or credible information to suggest there are ties to terrorism to this incident. But what exactly all that means, we don't know. Because that's not a clear, no terrorism. That leaves a lot of questions. So, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I want to see what this investigation bears out, and I certainly hope that this investigation is fast-tracked. All right, I promised to get right to your calls, and I'm going to do that. 508-996-0500 is the number, and you are next in WBSM. Thanks for hanging on.
Hello?
Hello, you're on the air.
Hi. I agree with you. I think they made a hasty decision announcing that there was definitely no problems, but I believe that it needs to be thoroughly investigated before they make any kind of announcement. I agree with you on that. I wanted to ask you if you're aware the same thing happened years ago. I think it was in the 1990s in Florida with the Skyway Bridge. It was some kind of a cargo ship. I've got a book up in the attic, but I haven't looked at it for so many years. A cargo ship hit the bridge, tore the bridge in half, just like you took a knife and cut it in half. And there were people with no pre-warning, and it showed cars in the books that were hanging on the edge, and they were trying to get out of their vehicles and crawling on the ground with the wind blowing to try to see if they could get to safety and so forth. And they showed a bus, I think it was, and things like that in the water. And since then, they've rebuilt it, but they do have a surrounding around all the whatever you call them, that hold up the bridge, the pilings.
Yeah.
They've made them really structurally that they can handle something like that. And the other half, where I said it looked perfect, they left that there. And the tourists or the locals will drive around. You got a path you can go, and they go fishing off that bridge now because it's in the middle of the water.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah. If I find that book, I'll be happy to drop it off so you can read it. It's very interesting how that happened.
I can find. You know what? Save yourself the trouble. I can just look it up right online and find it right online. And
Okay, that was
yeah.
in Tampa.
Yeah, I can
Yes,
find.
yes.
I know the bridge well. I've been on it many times. So, but I don't remember that from the 1990s. So I'm gonna look that up when I get off the air.
I could be wrong. It could have been the late 80s as well as the 90s. I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a senior, you kind of forget years go by so fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you hanging on. 508-996-0500 is the number. Thank you for waiting. And next on WBSM.
Hey, Ray.
Hey.
You know, as I've been trying to, I heard on one of the shows that they weren't using, their government pilots. I'm calling you from out in San Francisco, and a ship can't leave without having a pilot on it. You know, a local person that knows the bay, that knows the estuary, that knows the channel. And they mentioned on one of the other shows that they didn't have one of those pilots on it. It was not a local person that was guiding it. And then somebody else mentioned that the power did go out for a certain period of time, and the momentum of the ship was just so intense that the power went out, and I'm not sure if the rudder went out at the same time. But in any case, you know, the idea that they didn't have a local pilot could be a major part of this.
Yeah, but we don't know that for certain at this point. I mean, that there's a lot of things that get stated by people who don't necessarily know what's going on, or maybe they hear a rumor, or they hear somebody said this and they repeat it. So we don't know that yet. That has not been reported by the FBI, by the governor, or the National Transportation Safety Board at this point. So I just as soon hold off judgment on that.
Right.
And I mean, this is the fifth largest port, fifth busiest port on the East Coast. I assume that they had tugs and they had everything that was required to bring the ship into port. I assume was there. I can't imagine that it wasn't. But again, we'll wait and see what the investigators say. National Transportation Safety Board is going to be out at 2:30 with a with an updated statement. So maybe there'll be something more on that.
Yeah, one other angle on this, though, was one of the scandals that happened just at the end of the second Bush administration, Bush Jr., was that the ports of America, or a lot of the ports, were privatized to an overseas company. If I remember right, it was the United Arab Emirates. And what made it even creepier was, when you think about 1776, the founding fathers would never have allowed a kingdom to own the ports of America after America got founded. But United Arab Emirates is a kingdom. And that some of the very ports of America were in the 13 states. And so I'm wondering if Baltimore is one of those privatized ones, and whether or not it's sabotage is more likely that it's some corporate cheapskate that said, we don't need to pay pilots anymore.
Again, what you're doing is you're just repeating the speculation that you just put out there. We don't know any of that is true. I mean, you're taking the premise in speculation that there were no pilots on board, and you're taking it all the way down the field, and we don't know there were no pilots on board. So let's find out what's going on, and then you can speculate about it when you've got some hard information. Thank you, my friend. 508-996-0500. You're up next on WBSM. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Barry.
Hi.
Hi. We can solve the next problem very quickly. I have a boat with a sophisticated radar on it. On my radar, I have in front of me, I can put parameters in from a half mile to 2 miles to 5 miles. Anything that shows up, if I'm not paying attention to that radar, an alarm will go off in my boat. Well, we can institute that on a bridge radar on both sides of the bridge, that if something is coming up and it's off course out of the parameters of the safe course, gates would come down immediately without any people even being on the bridge. Electronic gates would come down and close both ends of the bridges up to keep the public safe.
Is that technology already in play, do you know?
Oh, yeah, because I have it on my boat. I mean,
all right, because what I'm thinking here is what we did hear from the governor this morning of Maryland was that the Mayday came in sufficient time to allow the bridge to be closed at each end. I'm assuming And this is what happens when you speculate. I'm assuming that the Mayday went to the harbor master, and then the harbor master notified the police to go and shut down those ends. It could be that exactly what you're talking about happened. That there was that they have automatic gates that come down in a case. Because, I was wondering, why is it that if they're notifying the police to close down the bridge by the time the police get there and everything else, but yet there's a crew working on that bridge that apparently were not notified, and they went down with the bridge.
Right. But if you had a operating radar facing the ocean side, facing the bay side, and you have that channel of parameters that a boat has to be lined up in, going out 5 miles, and if the boat is out of that, the gates come down. It's not going to protect the bridge, but it's going to protect the pedestrians.
Yeah, keep people from getting on the bridge. Yeah. Have you seen the video?
Right. Oh, many times.
Yeah. What did you think when you saw it? I mean, to me, again, I'm a complete novice. I'm watching this video in the dark. I have no idea what speed that video is moving at, whether it's real time or sped up or whatever. What I thought I saw was a boat moving parallel to the bridge and then taking a sharp turn. Did you see it that way, or did you see something else?
What I will tell you, my nephew runs the biggest ocean drilling ship, deep water ship in the country, and a cargo ship that size takes a mile and a half to stop. They can turn, but they're never going to stop. So this talk about bumpers, bumpers aren't going to do anything.
Not going to do any good. Okay.
But if they have that automatic radar with the channel coming into the bridge, and if they're off to one side of the parameters of the channel, gates come down automatically without having to call the police, without having to call the Coast Guard, without having to do a Mayday. They come down immediately.
Right.
Like I say, in my boat, if there's something in front of me and I'm not paying attention to my radar, depends on if I got it set on 1/4 of a mile, 1/2 a mile, 2 miles, or 5 miles. Anything that shows up in front of me, I'm going to get an alarm that sounds off on my radar that's going to alert me, hey, dummy, wake up. There's something in front of you.
Yeah.
And if they did that, gates would come down. There would be no pedestrians hurt. It's not going to like I say, that radar won't protect the bridge. What's going to happen to the bridge is going to happen to the bridge. But there'll be nobody coming over the bridge with that automatic radar, because they're going to take the human factor out of it, and it's just going to be all electronic.
Absolutely. Hey, good stuff. I appreciate that. Thank you. 508-996-0500. I don't know. Maybe that is what happened. There were only a handful of vehicles on the bridge, and we were told that the Mayday came in soon enough to allow the ends of the bridge to be sealed off, so no more vessels, no more vehicles could get on the bridge. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe it was some kind of an automatic sensor system like that resulted in the gates coming down. I'm not sure. We'll find out more about that as we go on. There's no question about that. All right, I've got to take a break. 508-996-0500. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Welcome back to the program. It is 1:24 on a Tuesday afternoon. 508-996-0500 is our phone number. And I don't know if you've heard this one yet, but the city of Boston is preparing to hand over the city's old Chelsea Soldiers Home to the state for another shelter for illegal immigrants. Boston is handing over the old Chelsea Soldiers Home. Is that the place where the veterans all died during COVID? Old Chelsea Soldiers Home. It's going to be used as a shelter for illegal immigrants. Maura Healey's administration is looking for more sites to house migrants. Healey's office says that it is, quote, over capacity at its current established shelter, so the Soldiers Home facility is the next that would be put to use to house migrants. The city of Boston reports that about 100 families will soon be housed at that facility. Massachusetts has now instituted a new requirement that illegals applying to stay in the shelters must sign up for state programs that aim to transition them out of reliance on state assistance. We have said for months now that our system is at capacity and we do not have the space providers or funding to continue expanding, Emergency Assistance Director Scott Rice said, according to the Boston Herald. This new certification policy is a responsible step to address the capacity constraints at our safety net sites. Families will need to demonstrate that they've taken action to get on a path toward independence and out of shelter. Applicants will be required to look for work or participate in training programs. Meanwhile, hundreds more are still on their way to Massachusetts. The governor met yesterday with the President of the Senate, Karen Spilka, and Mariano, the House Speaker, and they kibutzed about this situation. And Mariano and Spilka say that the governor's plan to impose 1 month restrictions on families is consistent with their own plans to limit people's stays in the state's more traditional shelter system. She announced it just this morning, so we're taking a look at it. Senate President Karen Spilka told reporters yesterday afternoon when asked for her opinion on the plan. But it is somewhat consistent with what we did last week, and having every family on a plan and the necessity for them to follow the plan in order to stay in the shelters. Elizabeth Sweet, who's the executive director of the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition, takes issue with Maura Healey's new plan. Of course she does. While we understand state leaders are responding to a humanitarian crisis that is without precedent here in Massachusetts, we are deeply concerned that forcing families to reapply for emergency shelter each month will create unnecessary red tape, sow confusion, and ultimately place more families on the streets, Sweet said. Implementing deadlines will solve little when immigrants are already striving to leave the emergency shelter system and provide for themselves and their family as quickly as possible. Instead, state and federal leaders should focus on providing community service organizations the resources they need to support arrivals in pursuing work authorization, long-term housing, and case management services. Hey, there's one solution to this. You can stay home. Or you can go home. Don't come. Period. Don't come. Don't come. Don't complain. Oh, man, you're going to make us reapply every month? Oh, gee. Well, go home. Simple. Mariano also seemed to think that Healey's plan to restrict overflow sites was in line with the legislature's move to begin limiting shelter in the face of a large influx of new homeless families who have needed services over the past year. The state is poised to spend nearly $1 billion this fiscal year, which expires on June 30th, and again in the fiscal year that starts July 1st, on the emergency family shelter system. It's $1 billion. So what's $1 billion right here and there? It's $1 billion for the current fiscal year and $1 billion for the new fiscal year that has it begins on July 1st. According to unofficial Border Patrol reports, the number of migrants illegally crossing the southwest border between ports of entry surpassed the 1 million mark in less than the first 6 months of the fiscal year. The milestone puts the Biden administration on pace for more than 2 million migrant apprehensions for the third consecutive year. The number of migrants apprehended, millions, we're talking millions here, not hundreds of thousands, not millions. The number of migrants apprehended after illegally crossing the U.S. border with Mexico exceeded the 1 million mark by March 25th, which was yesterday. The apprehension of just over 1 million migrants during the first 6 months of fiscal year 24, which began on October 1, 2023, falls just shy of the same period last year when agents apprehended nearly 1,057,000 migrants. Just so you don't get confused, the fiscal year is different. The state fiscal year is July 1st to June 31st, and the federal fiscal year starts on October 1st and goes to the end of September. So when you hear fiscal year, and it seems like it's the number of months is different, that's why. They have a different start and end date. The Tucson sector continues to lead the 9 Southwest Border Patrol sectors with the apprehension of approximately 301,000 migrants during the first 6 months of the year. This is up by more than 167% from the same period last year. Up on the northern border, the Swanton sector continues to experience increases in the rate of migrant apprehensions during the first 6 months of the fiscal year. The sector reports an increase of more than 110% over the same period a year ago. So the Massachusetts House and Senate have each approved their own versions of spending bills for the migrant shelters here in Massachusetts, and will have to reconcile their differences while working under a tight but vague deadline, says the State House News Service. Maura Healey's administration reiterated yesterday that money for the shelter system will run out by early spring. And while the governor, Senate President Karen Spilka, and House Speaker Rob Mariano seem to be generally headed in the same direction, nobody put an actual date to the deadline as to when money will run out and when we're going to need more money. President of Mexico, President Obrador, warning that the flow of migrants from Latin America into the United States will continue unless billions of dollars in aid is sent every year. President Obrador warned on Sunday during an interview with 60 Minutes that unless the United States complies with Latin America's request for aid, the tide of migrants will continue. In January, Obrador issued a series of demands for what the U.S. must do to stop the flow of migrants to the border, ranging from sending Latin American countries $20 billion in aid a year to granting some level of amnesty to illegal immigrant workers in the U.S. You know, a cruise missile or two could solve that problem real quickly, right? Just saying. Who's this clown to make threats to us? Send us $20 billion a year, or we're going to keep the flow coming in. I don't know. Build a wall. Build a wall. It's as simple as that. There are easy ways to end. Maybe President Obrador would like to see the U.S. Marines cross the border and fight a war on corruption in Mexico. You think he'd like to see that? Threatening us? By the way, there's a news conference at 2 o'clock coming up. Kennedy Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to announce his running mate at 2 o'clock. There's been some speculation that could be Aaron Rodgers, the football player. Other names have come up as well, so I'm really not following it all that closely, so I haven't seen the latest press on this, but it'll be interesting to see what he announces at 2 o'clock anyway. We've been reporting here since last night about Chick-fil-A making moves to take over the abandoned Sears Auto Center at the Dartmouth Mall. The proposal was outlined at a planning board meeting last night. Initial site plan review. So, this thing still has a little bit to go. But one big concern last night at the meeting was traffic. And that's a bad area for traffic already. I think Chick-fil-A would draw a lot of folks. And so that certainly has to be a concern. But What about Chick-fil-A? I mean, there's quite a history with Chick-fil-A. Between Chick-fil-A and the LGBTQ community. This dates back over a decade now. Dan Cathy is Chick-fil-A's chief executive officer, and he made a bunch of public comments opposing same-sex marriage. And I guess the company donated a lot of money to something called the WinShape Foundation. And money went to organizations seen by the LGBTQ activists as hostile to LGBTQ rights. Well, Cathy's made it clear from day one that he has a deeply religious family and business, and he opposes same-sex marriage. Now, I suppose that's his right. To my knowledge, I've not seen any reports, and I've done some pretty deep research over the course of the last 12 hours or so. I've not found any cases where Chick-fil-A has been accused of denying service to same-sex couples or LGBTQ folks in general, or denying employment to them. But, this kind of stuff happens. So you don't like the charities that Chick-fil-A donates to because the Family Institute and different Christian organizations or whatever, because they don't share your view. It's simple. You don't go to their business. Simple as that. We saw Black Lives Matter shaking down major corporations all across this country. We've seen the LGBTQ community shaking down businesses, Target and all these other places. Look at Bud Light and all of these different things that have been going on. So people just use their feet and they shop elsewhere, right? Which is, the great thing about the United States, America. You don't have to go there if you don't like their politics. It's fine. You don't have to go there. Go somewhere else. It's important to remember, too, that, anybody who might be upset that Dan Cathy opposed same-sex marriage. Remember, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton opposed same-sex marriage, too, as did Barack Obama. Until 2008, when Hillary and Barack were running against each other and they had to outflank each other on the left and had this metamorphosis. Remember, it was the Clintons that gave us Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Five 508-996-0500. We'll start at the top. Thanks for hanging on. You're next in WBSM.
Hey, what's going on, Barry?
Hey, how you doing?
Not bad. What I found interesting about this, the bridge and the ship, a lot of people are overlooking something that I didn't even realize. Who is going to pay for this?
You are.
They have a thing called general average, which is an old maritime law, which is basically the cargo holders themselves. So not the ship owner, but the things that are on the ship itself. That they are the ones who actually pay for the damages. Now, the federal government could say to the cargo guys, the shipments, don't worry about it. We're gonna pay for it, which I believe President Biden already did. But without the federal government, if this was actually just without the federal government paying for it, the cargo itself, the cargo businesses actually pay for the damages to the bridge and anything else that happened, which I find astronomically, like, I'm befuddled by it, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether the federal government or the state government owns that bridge.
Well, it's an interstate. If it's an interstate, then it's the federal government. It's a bridge, actually. It's a bridge, so it may be the federal government that owns it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Is it
an
an interstate or an intrastate? Is it federally owned or is it state owned? But in any event, the government is going to have to pay for the replacement of that bridge, which means the taxpayers will pay for it.
Right, and I think they should be reimbursed by.
No question about that.
Owners.
And I'm sure they will seek
should go
reimbursement.
after
I'm sure the owner of the ship is insured. And
Right, but they don't go after the owner of the ship. That's the thing that it's called general average. And one of you, I'm sure Don from Stoughton already knows about it before I did. But general average is an old maritime law, older than the Constitution of the United States, where whatever's being carried, whatever company's being carried on the actual ship, pays for the damages, pays partially for the damages. So they distribute all the liabilities amongst everybody, every company that's on that ship. Share in the liability of that ship, not the ship itself, which I think is ridiculous, to be honest with you.
Well, that'll all get sorted out. That's all going to get sorted out. I mean, it's way too early to even figure that out at this point. Right now, we got to figure out what happened and try to get that port open, because that's the biggest thing right now.
I think, you have a lot of, obviously, your civil engineers are going to chime in. I don't know if somebody else called, but the Bay Bridge in San Francisco and a lot of these major port bridges, they have these fenders around every pylon. A large barrier going around every pylon that would stop
there's no way that a fender would have stopped that boat. It was just too big and it was just moving too fast.
No, you're absolutely right. It was going eight knots. That's what they were saying, which is above the posted speed limit in that river. And it's over 100,000 tons or whatever it is. But it could have mitigated. Instead of being a complete collapse, it could have been a partial collapse.
But we don't know that there weren't fenders there. We don't know any of that yet. The National Transportation Safety Board has not. No. National Transportation Safety Board has not talked about the speed the vessel was going, and it hasn't talked about any of these navigational considerations that you're raising. We don't know any of that stuff. So a lot of this is speculation. I mean, now you're saying the boat was going too fast. We don't know that yet. That has not been determined. There's been no investigation yet. And once the investigation is complete, then we'll know whether the vessel was going too fast. But that part is just beginning. Thank you, my friend. 508-996-0500. You're up next in WBSM. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Regarding Chick-fil-A, you kind of stole my thunder. You just don't go. You know what I'm saying? That's
don't go. I know it. Yeah.
It's a big deal,
Yeah.
My family's down in Texas. Those things are all over the place. And, it's like it's nothing. But, I was thinking about it. They won't be able to protest, if they try to, because that's private property. They would have to do it on the street, basically, because there's no sidewalks. But they can't protest on private property without the owner's permission.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Oh, because think about it. Where it's located, that's within the property.
That's right, way up into the parking lot, yeah.
Right. So that's not public space. That's private property.
Right. So they'd have to go on Route 6 or on Fons Connor Road.
Basically, right. Think about it. Because you want to do it, go play in the highway, like my mother used to say,
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, if you've got nothing better to do with your life, then go and stand on Fons Connor Road and Route 6 and wave signs, hey, hey, ho, ho, Chick-fil-A has got to go. I really feel sorry for you. I mean, I do. I really feel sorry. You need a hobby. You need something to go. Because it's not going to stop people from going there. And if you don't want to go, it's just as you stated, don't go.
That's it. And the funny thing is, I've tried it. I'm not impressed. I don't understand the fascination because where my family is, around this time over there, there's a line. I don't get it. The sandwiches are all right. I'm not a fan, but whatever, more power to them. But I just get upset when decisions are made because of religious beliefs or, the color of the sky in your world. As long as it meets zoning, it goes in. That's my opinion.
Well, there was a lot of hoopla that went on. I don't know if you remember, but Boston Mayor Menino at the time said, "Oh no, you're not going to locate here, and because we don't like your policies, and so on and so forth." And even the ACLU and others got all over Menino and the politicians, and I was surprised to see the ACLU do this, but. They got involved, the American Civil Liberties Union, Mother Jones Magazine, all of these liberal, groups came out and really dressed down Boston and Chicago and San Francisco and some of these other cities that were trying to keep Chick-fil-A from locating within their borders, saying, look, get a life. I mean, these people have a right to open, and they have a right to their opinion about same-sex marriage. I mean, again, it was okay when Barack Obama said he's opposed to same-sex marriage, and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. That was fine. So, but Chick-fil-A can't?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We all have the right to opinion. You don't like it, fine. Don't go there. Don't, go to the venue. Who cares? It's just like if you don't like a particular rock artist or something, then you don't buy a ticket to go.
Yeah.
That's the freedom of choice.
Well, there was, if you remember, there was a big boycott that was initiated by the LGBTQ community. Again, over a decade ago, when it was first learned that this company was donating money to traditional marriage organizations and religious organizations in general. And Mike Huckabee, the former governor of Arkansas, led a counter protest, and actually the company's revenues went way up, and so that all just kind of fizzled away, as most boycotts do. But look, when Target was parading around kids rainbow clothing and so on and so forth, I didn't go to Target. I mean, I didn't make a big deal. I didn't stand out front, hey ho ho, and all this kind of crap. I just didn't go.
Yeah, and I understand that didn't go over too well money-wise, and I think they've kind of slowly phased that out, but I could be mistaken on that.
But that's what happens with business, too. If you go out there and you do something stupid like that, like Bud Light, and you lose a fortune, then you change your advertising strategy, right? Because bottom line to all of these guys is about selling beer or selling products or whatever. So if it's not working for you and you're losing money, you change your policies. And
that's about it.
That's about it. And if the customers don't like it, they'll just go somewhere else. Thank you, my friend. I got to hit a break. We'll come right back after this. Stay.
I woke up this morning and the sun was gone. Turned on some music to start my day.
All right, 1:50. It's a Tuesday afternoon. 508-9960-500. Watching those leaves just blow around in circles out there. It looks like it's pretty cold. I'll let you know when I head out in an hour. Well, by then it'll be too late. But it's kind of cold. It's going to warm up into the 50s tomorrow, so that's good. We'll check that forecast for you coming up in just a bit, so stay tuned. You're next in WBSM. Thanks for hanging on.
Good afternoon, Barry. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Good, Barry. A couple of things that you've been talking about is, first of all, this whole barge-like disaster, the bridge and the cargo ship. I feel like you. I mean, in a couple of hours, they just ruled it out. It seems like such a big investigation to be ruled out so quickly. That's the only thing I don't like, that I find it kind of weird, But I don't know. And the other thing that you were talking about the police people, they're not migrants, they're illegal aliens. I'm so sick of the news. A migrant is someone who comes here with permission, okay? Like a legal alien, a legal immigrant, a migrant who migrates here for work. These people are illegal, okay? Let's just call it. But it just blows my mind. I guess that the Soldiers' Home has no money for veterans, but they got money to put illegal aliens in there, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear
Barry,
you. Yep.
That just blows my mind. And when it comes to Chick-fil-A thing, the only thing that I'm concerned about, and I live in Dartmouth, I'm concerned that a lot of people come from other areas, especially up in Boston. Very woke people are coming down here. And they're really trying to push their way through the schools system with their wokeness. And now this is coming out of the LBG community. What worries me about this is whatever happened to freedom of thought. My thought and my beliefs is, as long as they don't hurt you in any way, I'm allowed to believe whatever I want to believe.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Because listen, I have friends of mine who are I call them civil unions, and they respect my opinion. I don't call it a marriage. To me, a marriage is a sacrament between a man and a woman to procreate.
That to me is a marriage, okay? Call it a silver union, call it you want. But in the same token, I wish no one ill harm. So why shouldn't a business have their own beliefs? It isn't like they're not serving LBG people who want to come in. They're not asking you, are you gay? Are you bi? Are you trans? They're asking you, you want chicken? You want barbecue? You want it grilled? How do you want it?
No, exactly. I agree with you 100%. Now, I mean, if they were discriminating against people in terms of employment, or if they were refusing to serve certain customers, that'd be a different story. Then you got a case. But I mean, they have a right to contribute. The owner has a right to contribute to whatever charities he wants, and he's a religious person. He donates money to Christian organizations, and those Christian organizations don't believe in same-sex marriage. But again, I mean, it was okay when Barack Obama and Hillary and Bill Clinton didn't believe in same-sex marriage. Nobody they weren't protesting outside the White House that I'm aware of, anyway.
No, Barry. You know, this is getting way. This is crazy world is that we live in. A person's personal beliefs, if it doesn't affect your life in any way, a person's entitled to their beliefs. What concerns me is this: that is a great location. I think it's an empty building. You get a meal tax. So I hope that the planning board does not be it down to minor pressure just because something goes on Facebook, on TikTok. That's not the way that the majority of the population
I'll be honest with you. I don't expect there to be any kind of protest or pushback in that regard. I don't expect that at all. Maybe you might have a handful of people, but I don't. I think that most people around here are going to go there. They're going to look forward to it, and I think it'll do very well there. The only issue I have is the traffic. That is a huge problem at that intersection already, Florence Corner Road and Route 6.
Well, Barry,
maybe they can route the traffic out a different way.
Yeah, but Barry, if you look at that where Sears used to be, that car location is a tire-like location. It's a very huge lot, so they have enough room that if the drive-through gets backed up, there is a lot of room there. It'll take a lot of cars to really back up that huge lot. So they'll stay confined, and then they got two ways to leave. So I think out of all the locations, that'll be a perfect location for it.
Yeah, I think they'll figure it out without any problems. Thank you, Paul. I got to hold you right there. 508-996-0500 is the number. Quick break. We'll come in. And welcome back to the program. It is time to head into the newsroom. If you have a line, hang on to it. I'm going to get you calls immediately after the news. We will have RFK's announcement coming up at 2 o'clock. I guess Kennedy is going to make us an announcement about who his running mate is going to be. I'm not going to carry live or anything, but we'll tell you who it is. Also, the National Transportation Safety Board will have a news conference at 2:30 to update us about the horrible bridge collapse in Baltimore early this morning, about 1:30 this morning. Last I heard, they're still looking for 6 people that are unaccounted for as a result of the collision between the big freighter ship and the bridge. A lot of unanswered questions still, and you got to wait for the investigation. You can't speculate, and you don't want to be a conspiracy theorist either, but. Wait for the official information because it's always better when we get it. Also, we're talking about Chick-fil-A. And as you may or may not have heard, Chick-fil-A has gone before the Dartmouth Planning Board and is looking to locate a Chick-fil-A restaurant at the Dartmouth Mall or on the Dartmouth Mall footprint. It would be at the former Sears Auto Center. And I think it's a great location. My only concern is the traffic at Florence Corner Road and Route 6, but I think that can be mitigated, and I think it would be I think it would do really well. Chick-fil-A obviously is controversial with some members of our society, and I don't know. I mean, the way I view that is if you don't like Chick-fil-A's position on same-sex marriage.